What's going on, draft fans? Welcome back. Cover One, the NFL Draft Podcast. Doing an audio show today, getting back on the YouTube stuff next week. My man, DP, Damian Parson with me. DP, how we doing?
Doing good, brother. Doing good on this Sunday afternoon.
Yes,
College football, man, season's coming. The regular season's coming to an end soon.
Yeah, a lot quicker than I had anticipated. I think any of us
Mm-hmm.
anticipated. But we've had a weird Sunday afternoon of football. That is for sure.
Absolutely.
Raiders down to the Giants right now. The Patriots are beating the Panthers with Sam Darnold playing like trash. The Bengals kind of getting stomped on by Cleveland. Joe Burrow not playing well. Dallas is just getting mollywopped by Denver. Buffalo in Jacksonville, 9-6 game. Jacksonville's up. Just crazy, absolutely bizarre of how this whole thing is kind of coming about. But week 10 of college football, that's kind of what we do. That's our lane. That's what we focus on, the NFL draft, as we always do. And, I don't know what direction you want to start here. I kind of want to just start with my team and get it out of the way because we were talking about it a little bit before the show, and I kind of went on my tangent, and I'm going to do it here. The number 3 Michigan State Spartans just absolutely getting destroyed by Purdue. I mean, not exactly what I thought it was going to be. The score looks like maybe it was a little bit closer, but I can tell you just firsthand, and I'm sure a lot of people watched the game, but not even close. Not even close. Michigan State's defense is god-awful. They can create pressure. They can stop the run. They've got a good front seven, but their secondary is terrible. They've got the transfers from Florida and Alabama, which are just bad. And Purdue exposed them. Cade McNamara did it 2 weeks ago against, when Michigan played Michigan State, and Aiden O'Connell comes out, throws 536 yards, and David Bell against another top 5 team in the country puts up 200 yards receiving. And he was, to me, the only bright spot to Purdue. And he worked Michigan State so well. Whether it was the tight end, whether it was a running back out of the backfield, they always had something open underneath. Michigan State would go to a single high, this cover one look, playing man coverage and getting beat there. They'd have their linebackers underneath, not doing anything. Eric Crouch would just stand around and he'd get beat. It was just bad football all the way around. They couldn't do really much anything defensively. And look, I like Mel Tucker. I like what he's been able to do. But to sit there on the podium Tuesday evening or Monday evening, whatever day it was earlier this week, to sit there and go back to the 1950s and list all the times that Purdue has beat somebody in the top 5. I appreciate you listing off, giving us a history lesson, but you just added yourself to the damn list. Like you allowed a team that is really, I don't think that good. You allowed them to go 11 for 18 on third down. You, again, allowed a quarterback that nobody's ever heard of throw for over 500 yards on you, a receiver that is good. I don't necessarily would say he's great. He's very fun to watch. I like him a lot, but you allowed him to go off on you for 200 yards. Back-to-back weeks, you allowed I think they've given up almost 1,000 yards receiving in consecutive weeks. So it's just insane to me of what they've been able to do to this point. And now I'm starting to hope that it's not, coming back to reality here, because they've got a tough stretch down, a tough schedule down the stretch. They got to go to Ohio State. They got to end the season against Penn State. They've got Maryland this week, which I think they should win 2 out of those 3 games. But 10-2, it's not going to get you into the college football playoff. Is it good enough to get you into possibly the Rose Bowl? Maybe. We'll see. But it's just disappointing to see it happen like this. And, for the folks at home listening, the last time Michigan State lost to a Purdue football team, the coach was Nick Saban, and he left the following offseason to go to LSU. So it seems like maybe Mel Tucker's destined for LSU. And if that's the case, I mean, that's fine. But God, what a letdown. Just what a letdown.
No, I listen. I hear. I'm not gonna lie to you. When I was watching the game, I was getting angry too, because Kenneth Walker's one of my favorite running backs and favorite players in college football this season, and heading into this draft. And I was getting frustrated just watching it. Watching the terrible technique from the corners. Aiden O'Connell over 500 yards passing. Just simple defensive mistakes. Not covering the tight end completely through the play, different things of that nature. It's just like, man, like, what are we doing? And then Peyton Thorne struggling yet again, not able to help out his running game and help out his offense and make, just quality quarterback plays, man, quality throws. It was a lot of just a lot transpired. And as I was watching the game, I was like, man, I could just hear Russ losing his mind right now.
Oh.
I was like, I know he's losing his mind. And I felt so bad for your brother, because I was like, this has to be so difficult to sit here and watch against, the Purdue spoiler makers is what they called them yesterday on TV, because they've spoiled 3 seeds or the third ranked team in the nation twice. They've beaten a team that's been ranked third. So it's tough, man. And like I said, David Bell, great wide receiver, really good prospect, kind of Rashad Bateman-esque. Yeah. And he doesn't have a true trump card, but he's technical. Like, he doesn't have that A plus trait or that A trait, in terms of the athleticism, extreme quickness, elusiveness, but he's technical, he's strong, great hands, good route runner, just a really good player overall. And but 217 yards allowed, 1-on-1, he's working you at the release point, he's beating you with footwork and his hands, just technical, and then stacking you and getting over the top, and then making plays after the catch. So that was, like I said, it's a difficult game. I do think, I'll be honest with you though, I don't think that your chances at making the college football playoff is over. Like you said, you have a tough road ahead, right?
Yeah.
You have, I know for a fact you got Ohio State. Who else do you guys have this season? Let's see.
We got Maryland next week. We got Ohio State after that, which is at Ohio State, and then after that, you've got Penn State at the end of the season to end it. So,
I'm saying, if you guys run all 3, right? So you beat Ohio State. Ohio State's going to be ranked top 4 after. Well, I think weren't they? No, they were at 5. If I'm not mistaken, they were at 5. So they're going to be ranked top 4 this week, right? So you knock off Ohio State. Let's say Oregon loses, right? Because it's definitely part of Oregon is not a playoff contender to me. I love Verone. I love their defense. I'm not in love with their offense. Yeah, Troy Dye had a great game yesterday. I just don't think what they do offensively is sustainable to go on a deep playoff run and win the national title. But they're susceptible to lose, in my opinion, these next 3 weeks, depending on who they play. So they can lose. Like, you guys can still make it in. I think and at the end of the day, I think Bama's going to be a 2-loss team. Possibly I think they're going to be a 2-loss team. 4-4 LSU team, and we're going to talk about Bama in a second, but 4-4 LSU team gave them all they could handle last night. So there's a lot of bruises on that body, like chinks in the armor for Alabama. So you guys can still make it in if you can run the table here, especially that Ohio State game, that Ohio State and that Penn State game. They will hold weight, especially Ohio State with their top 4 ranking that they're about to have. I think you guys can make it in if you run the table.
We'll see what happens. I'll be honest, but I mean, I would be happy with 11-1 at this point. Like, talking with my son today about it, we would be happy with an appearance at the Rose Bowl. Like, that would be fine with us. I asked him. I said, would you rather go to the college football playoff and get spanked by either Alabama or Georgia, or would you rather go to the Rose Bowl and potentially beat, let's say, a team like Oregon? And he said, I think I'd much rather go to the Rose Bowl. And I said, yeah, I think I would too. Because realistically, they're going to be a 3 or 4 seed, and they're going to be stuck playing one of those 2 teams. And like Alabama going to the 2 seed, we can jump into them now because I know we'll talk about, that game against LSU. But Alabama being a 2 seed just protects them against everything else on their schedule. Sure. Close game, 20-14 against LSU yesterday. But you look at what they have left. I mean, New Mexico State, Arkansas should beat both of those teams. I think Arkansas has proven that they're beatable. And again, when you just match it up, like Arkansas love the defensive players, love some of the players they have offensively, but ultimately it's just not like Bryce Young has got a little bit too much going for him with John Metchi and Jamison Williams, your guy. So it leaves Auburn at the end of the year to potentially pull the upset Maybe it happens. I don't think it does. So therefore, Alabama will be number 2 going into the SEC championship game, which is where they'll play. Of course, Georgia, who I think we can all agree is probably the best team in the country, hands down, not going to lose a game. I would be shocked if Georgia lost a game. And with that, I mean, even if they lose to Georgia in the SEC championship game, they'll be the 3 seed. Whatever. They're not going to drop them down to 4. We're not going to get Alabama, Georgia in back-to-back weeks. You know what I mean? So yeah. Alabama's protected. Like you said, they've been beaten up a little bit this year. They've got a tough loss against Texas A&M. They had a tight one against LSU, a little bit tighter than I think any of us anticipated. They were double-digit favorites. So, I mean, watching that game yesterday, Alabama, LSU, not exactly sure where you are with a team like LSU. Going into that one, I wasn't expecting much with all the Ed Orgeron stuff, but I thought Bama was going to put up 30-35. LSU, sure, 14 is fine, but I really thought it was going to be a double-digit win for Bama, and it didn't happen. So, what's your take on Alabama and ultimately, I mean, where they ended up in the college football playoff at 2? I'm assuming they're going to stay there at 2 after this win as well.
And of course they're going to stay at 2. The committee has their favorites, their bias. Mm-hmm. Of course they're going to stay at 2. It's the SEC team, But if we're talking style points, it's funny. And you went on the rant, so I feel the need to give my thoughts on this whole committee thing. I hate when, Cincinnati's undefeated. They need style points. Okay, cool. Bama has 1 loss, and it was a bad loss, in my opinion. They shouldn't have. Looking at the quarterback play that they faced, they should not have lost that game, right? Against Texas A&M. And I think that's the backup quarterback or backup to the backup, whichever one. But you lost that game. Okay, cool. It's the SEC opponent, so you're going to give a little bias there as well, committee. I understand. But why does Cincinnati need style points? They lost, LSU is a terrible team right now. And not only that, they have horrible quarterback play. They're down, they're starting 3 or 4 corners, not just Derek Stingley, but the guys behind Derek Stingley, who also start with him, were missing that game. They one of their corners who was starting the game, who was one of the 4th or 5th corners, he was banged up in and out of the game as well. So you're sitting there and you're watching them rotate young guys in that they weren't going to start, typically weren't going to start or play in this game against Jamison Williams and John Metchi. Mm-hmm. And it's just, especially the concepts that Bama likes to run with Jamison Williams, a lot of free releases, have him off the ball, off the line of scrimmage, switch releases, getting him going north and south quickly, and then getting him matched up on safeties. Dear God, this long, fast stallion is galloping towards a safety, and he's in no man's land. No help. It's just him, and he's cooked for a long touchdown. But Bama, Will Anderson is going to be a top 10, top 5 pick next year, right? We all can say that confidently right now. He's a monster, one of the best pass rushers in all of college football, up there with Kayvon and Drake Jackson, Aiden Hutchinson, and those guys, George Karlaftis, all of them, right? So we're watching him just dominate SEC tackles and O-lines week after week, being just a monster. But again, looking at this whole situation, Bama, they don't have style points. They lost a bad game and they played horribly yesterday. Just the fact of the matter is that LSU's quarterback played worse. He has time to set his feet and go after the mesh concept or the crosser against zero pressure, and he's thrown off his back foot because he has no composure. So it's that's rough. So for me, Bama should slip. And, you know what I mean? If you really want to keep things fair, Cincinnati should be in the top 4. I don't care about how the game ended for Tulane, because at the end of the day, they won and they're undefeated and they have a marquee win on their record. Again, I asked about Ohio State. What's their marquee win? What's Oklahoma's marquee win? Oregon's marquee win is against Ohio State, who doesn't have a true marquee win. And then Oregon also lost, if I'm not mistaken, to Stanford, who that's their marquee win. So it's just it's so much inconsistency. That's why for me, I'm going to tell you, Russ, I want to get your opinion on this. I'd rather see a 6-team playoff. that 12 crap for me and for us as draft analysts, I don't want to see premier prospects go into a 12-team playoff just for somebody to add more risk of getting hurt and hurting their draft stock before April. I don't think that's smart football. I don't think that's smart. Mm-hmm. And if my son is in that situation, I'm telling him, hey, no, we're not doing that. You're not about to play 3 extra games or 2. No, we're not doing it. You're sitting, bud. We're not about to risk this bag for a national title. Because guess what? That's not helping you pay bills when you graduate college. Right. That's not going to help. Oh, man, I won a national title, but I blew my knee and I didn't get a chance to go to the league. But, yes, that's a little extreme. But can you understand where I'm coming from? So for me, I'd rather see 6 teams, Russ. I'd rather see the top 2 seeds get a bye, similar to how the NFL has done theirs for years. Top 2 teams get a bye, and then you have 4 teams battling it out, right? Mm-hmm. Got the wild card, then they go to the divisional, the AC championship, whatever, and then they go to the Super Bowl. Well, that's kind of similar. I think that's kind of how I want to have it done. 6 teams, not 12, maybe do 8. Yeah. But I prefer 6. Give the top 2 teams a bye. Let those 4, the rest of the teams, the other 4 teams, let them battle it out in their brackets and move on up. Okay, now the top 2 teams come off a bye. They play their game. Whoever wins on that side of the bracket, those 2 teams advance to the national title, and they battle it out, right? So It's like I think that's the best way to do it, because at the end of the day, I don't want college football into February. I don't. Well, you know what I mean? I don't know how you even structure it with a 12-team playoff, like unless you're going to start before Christmas, I just don't see how it's going to work. I don't believe it will work. So what are your thoughts? How many teams do you think should be in the playoffs?
Well, I'm with you as far as expanding it. I would love to see something more than just 4, no doubt about it. Me personally, I like the idea of 6 because if you had the 6, like you're right, the first 2 teams would get a bye. Then your matchup would be, Michigan State versus Cincinnati, Oregon versus Ohio State in that first round, which would be, I think, a lot of fun. And then you kind of would get into the following week. But I'm okay with 8. I saw something this past week, and maybe it's just because through what we see, like I wouldn't be opposed to essentially maybe even shortening the season just a little bit and maybe eliminating a non-conference game or something like that. And that opens up the door for something like this. And I like the idea of having 8 because you would have in this first set of college football playoff rankings, you would have Georgia and Oklahoma, Alabama versus Michigan, Michigan State versus Cincinnati, and Oregon versus Ohio State. And then obviously your winners proceed and how that all goes. And yeah, it adds an extra game or 2 into the mix. But I think if, when you look at what the Division II side, the Division III side of college football does things, and I'm not calling it FCS and FBS. I'm not doing that. It's Division I, Division II, Division III. And when you look at stuff like that, like I enjoy watching that stuff. Now I'm with you. I don't want to see football go into February or anything like that. But there is a time where college football goes through this really big gap. The season ends basically like end of November, first week of December, and then there's like 2 to 3 weeks of no football. Well, let's just carry this thing over. Let's keep it moving and keep doing your thing. Like, could you imagine that weekend of where you have Army, Navy kind of in the middle of the day? Beforehand, you have, if you have that 8-team playoff, that's where it starts. Because I think they play like the December, first week of December, second week of December, whatever it is. That day is built around, sure, Army, Navy, but then your first game of the day, let's say, would be Michigan State, Cincinnati at noon. And then after that, you would have Army, Navy. And then at, 6 o'clock or whatever, you have 2 games going. And that could be, Alabama versus Michigan, and then Oregon versus Ohio State. You also have Friday nights too. You can make a Friday night game. Could you imagine a Friday night primetime game of something like Alabama, Michigan, or again, Oregon, Ohio State? Like that would just be so much fun for college football. So I'm hoping some expansion happens here down the road. I think it will. It's probably going to, again, take time because college football just, things take a while, it seems like, with anything within college football. So I'm okay with it taking time. I'm okay with them sorting this out, but no question about it, they've got to expand it, because, with 4 teams, it's just kind of bland. It runs its course. You automatically know there's 2 SEC teams every single year. Alabama's going to be one of them. Who's going to be the extra team? Is it Georgia? Is it LSU? Who's it going to be? So I'm with you on 6. I personally would like 8. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, I mean,
no, I like that. I like that. Like I said, I could deal with 8. Just the talks of 12 is just too much for me, man.
You have way too much.
Like, this is a little extra. Like let's keep it, let's keep it a little simple. I know you want to fix the system and fix the situation, but dear God, like no, like this isn't the answer, in my opinion, is a 12-team playoff. But I like the idea. I love the idea of 6. I think that's the best option. 8 I can deal with as well. But like I said, to me, man, Alabama, this isn't the Alabama of old, right? This is not that dominant, unbeatable team anymore. Mm-hmm. Like I don't see that.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And don't get me wrong. I love chaos. I love different things in NFL or in football in general, from the NFL all the way to the NBA. I hate seeing the same teams over and over again, unless of course it's one of my teams. But with this, I mean, like, I would love to see Alabama lose a game here down the stretch to a team like Auburn, and then potentially lose to Georgia. And then basically you have to go and say, okay, well, they can't get in the college football playoff because they're a three-loss team. You would probably add a team like Ohio State. I don't know if Ohio State's going to lose a game. Maybe they lose to Michigan State. I don't see them losing to Michigan. But we'll see on that. We'll obviously get into those games later down the stretch on the podcast from the video side and also the audio side here. But shifting over, you mentioned a little bit about Cincinnati, how you think that they should be in the college football playoff, and I'm with you. I think that they should be, because they are beating the teams that are on their schedule. They are beating the teams that they have to play against. I mean, they're not an independent team. They can't just schedule. They can't do a Notre Dame, right? They can't just put random teams on their schedule. And I get it. USC or Notre Dame's got a history of playing teams like USC and the Michigan States of the world. They haven't done those games in a while, but again, they've done that for a long time, playing kind of their schedule and the way it is. Cincinnati, sure, they beat Tulsa. They were up 2 points, but they came back. They put up 14 in the third quarter. They were up pretty convincingly. They allowed kind of a late touchdown there, and really, I mean, they're winning. They should be in. With that, though, I mean, they're number 2 team in the country according to the AP poll. The college football playoff ranking is going to be different and is going to be kind of that thing. But I wanted to spin it to, where are we with Desmond Ritter as a quarterback? Because I know we're going to talk about 2 specific quarterbacks here in a second, but Desmond Ritter is somebody that I still very much am high on. I still like quite a bit, and I feel like maybe he hasn't played necessarily up to par over the last 3 weeks. I mean, even against UCF, I mean, they put up 56 points and he only threw for 150 yards. Against Navy, he only threw for 176 yards. That game was a lot closer. Against Tulane, only 227 yards. Regardless, if you look at the statistics, it might not be pretty. But when you look at some of the throws, he's still making the throws. He's still showing what kind of quarterback he is, from the RPO stuff to the zone reads. Meanwhile, he's putting the ball into tight windows. He's able to throw it, I think, fairly effortlessly down the field. So I'm still very much in on Desmond Ritter. I think he's a top 5 quarterback in this class. Even I personally think he's a top 3 quarterback in this class, with just how it's shaping up for me. But where are you with Desmond Ritter, and what did you ultimately think of kind of the last 8 or 9 weeks for the Bearcats?
I like Ritter. For me, I have a thought process with him. I view him as like a top of the second round quarterback, which I don't really see in reality. Talking about actual evaluating this guy, I don't think any of them are first rounders. Like, I'm just gonna put that out there. I don't think any of them are true first rounders like we've seen in the past. But it's all about, like we always talk about, it's all about what you do with the players you acquire is in the team. There's no need to draft a quarterback and then they don't fit your system, and you're not going to fit your system to them, to that player skill set. With Ritter, he's extremely mobile. He has a big arm. He can make all the throws. and even with looking at his stat sheet yesterday, right? Against Tulsa, 15 and 23, 274, 2 touchdowns. He had the 1 interception. He ran the ball 12 times. I think in the NFL, he will be more. I think he'll be a better run threat, more explosive run threat in the NFL, because you're going to, with, again, coaching, if you're going to run the read options and different things and get creative with the play calling, allow him to use his legs more just freely and put it into the actual play call as well. But watching him on his first read, I love it. It's when he's moved off the first read, he's I don't know if he's pressing. I don't know if he's panicking. Sometimes the accuracy can be shot. But just yesterday, I think it was like 3 drops in the fourth quarter, which would have put him well over 300 yards passing on the day. Alec Pierce, who is a receiver, as I tweeted out yesterday, do not forget about him in this receiving class. He's a good receiver, vertical threat, has the body of a possession guy, can be a big slot, can be out wide. He's a good player, man. And, he climbs the ladder, knows how to high point and attack the ball in the air with a very vicious and aggressive mindset. Runs good routes for a guy his size as well. So, looking at it, I like Ritter. He is a top 5 quarterback for me. I like Sam Howell. How I've been this whole season. Just give these quarterbacks some time.
Yep.
And for me, it's just like that. Since these offense looked a little off kilter a little bit yesterday because they couldn't run the ball after Ford went down. They struggled to run the ball. Mm-hmm. But when Ritter still made throws, and like you said, he's pushing the ball downfield. He has that arm talent. He's dual threat. He's mobile. He seems intelligent as well. I know a lot of Twitter, it's funny because I always talk about it, the inconsistency with draft Twitter.
Oh, yeah.
Desmond Ritter throws an interception. Malik Willis throws an interception. Sam Howell throws an interception. It's like,
light
oh my
the
God.
world on fire.
Yeah, set the world on fire. Meanwhile, Carson Strong had a terrible game. Yeah, he won. Now you talk about a guy who doesn't play really any good teams or defenses typically. Doesn't really face a ton of pressure, and when he does, he's not the best. Yep. He does move the pocket well, as in navigating the pocket. I hate the term, and it started last year with Mac Jones. They're mobile in the pocket, or they have mobility. Like, no, you just know how to navigate. You know how to slide. You know how to shuffle. You know how to step up. You're not actually running and moving at a quick pace. Like, let's stop that draft term that just because you know how to move in the pocket, you're mobile. You're not mobile. You're still a statue. Because you can't run. I hate the term, but just looking at it, like Carson Strong had a terrible game, and it was none of those takes last night. So it's like, and I tweeted that out the other day. No matter who you are, you have draft biases. Just accept it, own it, and work through it. For me, some of the things I had to work on myself as an evaluator to kill some of those biases and truly evaluate players for who they are, what they fit into, and everything, so forth and so on. So with Ritter, man, I think, and I've heard that teams are high on him. Someone actually told me, one of my guys actually told me that the Falcons are really high on Desmond Ritter to sit behind Matt Ryan for a year. And I think that's perfect. Yeah. I think that is perfect. You walk in, hopefully, God bless Calvin Ridley, praying for him, dealing with the mental health issues that he's dealing with. Same, with Lane Johnson and any other football player. And I could just speak for someone that has worked in mental health for multiple years, as well as someone that has dealt with mental health issues myself. It's a battle. So do what you have to do for yourself. Find that happiness, find that peace, find that coping mechanism that doesn't have to do with substances and violence. Find something to cope with. Me, I dealt with dealt with it at like 10 years old.
Right.
And I started writing poetry. That's how I really got into poetry. I started putting pen to pad and expressing my feelings through that. So I pray for those guys, and I hope that they find an out away from football. That they can just be at peace and not deal with the mental demons that they've been dealing with. But if Calvin Ridley returns, You have Desmond Ritter sit for a year. Calvin Ridley returns. You will have that'll be year 3 of Kyle Pitts being in the league. So he'll be even more seasoned and has adapted to the NFL game even more so. Russell Gage, I'm expecting them to actually draft a talented running back soon.
I was just about to say that. I mean, imagine that. Imagine a draft where you're able, let's say at 19, pick 19, that's where they're at, selected right now. You go out and you get Desmond Ritter. Maybe it's a little rich for some people, but you don't know what's happening behind you in the draft. So you get him.
Right.
Pick 51. Maybe you take a Kyron Williams out of Notre Dame or an Isaiah Spiller out of A&M, or maybe even a Kenneth Walker out of Michigan State. And Ritter grows with that running back with those weapons that you mentioned. And you have to fix the offensive line. That's key. I mean, that offensive line is terrible.
And this is the perfect draft to do it, though, because it's a deep offensive line group. It's a lot of depth, a lot of talent.
Yeah. No, and I'm with you, man. I'm very much in on Desmond Ritter still. I've heard the same thing as far as the Falcons kind of being that team that's really been in on him. It also sounds like Matt Corral as well. It sounds like they're doing their homework on quarterbacks. So,
absolutely.
It wouldn't be surprising if maybe Atlanta, and we've seen them be a team that's moved up in the past. I mean, sure, things have kind of shifted this past offseason, kind of went a new direction, but they've been aggressive in the past. Arthur Blank likes to do that. Maybe that's something that they do here. They go from, 19 to 12. Minnesota seems to be a team that can move back and move around. Maybe Miami, they've got pick 11. They've also got a top 5 pick in there as well, or they had a top 5 pick. They gave it to Philly. But Philly as well. I mean, they got 3 picks in the top 15, so maybe they move around. So there's a good chance. You said you don't really see a quarterback potentially as a first-round talent in this group. I agree in a sense, and I think, though, ultimately we can both agree that there will be a quarterback or 2 taken in this draft in the first round, if not 3. I mean, it happens. You pay the premium for the position. Atlanta could be that team. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens with them. I don't know if they ended up beating the Falcons or beating the Saints today. I don't think they did. They ended up beating them 27-25. So, so I mean, they're now 5-4, and they could put themselves in a position to be a top 25 team now. With that,
and I want to throw in a point that you brought up when you talk about the running backs. For me, an ideal candidate, I would love to see Kenneth Walker with Arthur Smith and that, because remember Arthur Smith comes from Tennessee.
In your voice.
Yeah, that zone running game. And you have that explosiveness, you have that burst, that speed, the agility and elusiveness in open field, the cutting ability, the vision. He would be perfect for them. And not only just for Desmond Ritter, but that 1 year with Matt Ryan, that could really help, because we all know what helps defenses, longer drives. It keeps these guys fresh from the sidelines. That shortens the game as well and keeps the other explosive offense off the field. I would love to see that. I would love to see that, and like I said, it's a couple other guys. Breece Hall, I think, would be I don't think he fits the zone scheme at all. He's more of a off tackle. I do like him. I do like him between the tackles, but he loves to bounce out wide, get on the edges. They run a lot of off tackle over there at Iowa State. But yeah, they definitely, if you can walk out of this draft with Desmond Ritter in the first, Kenneth Walker in the second, and another offensive lineman, a good offensive lineman in the third, you're winning. Like that's a plan for success, Russ. You're drafting for success.
No doubt. And I mean, I hope Falcons fans are getting excited, because they are in a prime position to revamp their future a little bit, revamp this team, and hopefully it works out with Arthur Smith. We'll see what happens. I will say one player that did catch my eye, though, because I did watch that Cincinnati-Tulsa game a little bit, going back and forth between Sam Hartman versus Sam Howell, Wake Forest and North Carolina. Which, by the way, I mean, Sam Howell, can we just say the guy's like a freaking running back? It's incredible how and Sam Hartman kind of does it too, but it's incredible to me that when you watch Sam Howell, you just kind of expect him to drop back 3, 4, 5 steps in his drop and just deliver a strike down the field, but he's tucking it and running it. He's come a long way from that first week. But I will say the one player that caught my eye against Tulsa, or for Tulsa, was the running back Shamari Brooks. I don't know where you are with him as far as an overall running back, but he's a senior.
He looks good. He looks good.
He is shifty. He really can bring his pad level down, shows that shiftiness, that footwork that is needed between the tackles in those short areas of the field. I'm curious if we'll see him at either, the Shrine Bowl, the Senior Bowl, something like that. And I mean, I don't know. He could be a draftable prospect when we get that far down the road. Or at least, one of those UDFAs that really kind of comes out of nowhere for a team like the Philadelphia Eagles or something. That always seems to happen for them. They just pick up these random running backs and make it work. But yeah, no, I'm, again, Ritter and all that, but there was a quarterback battle that happened yesterday. I know I just mentioned Sam Hartman versus Sam Howell, but I don't want to get into that necessarily. I didn't watch a lot of this game. I did tune in a little bit, but nothing too crazy. Matt Corral and Malik Willis. This was kind of that QB1 game that everybody circled on the calendar, and Liberty Flames is a great mascot, but they're not Flames as far as an overall talent around right. Malik Willis. There's not much to go off of here. Willis did struggle, did throw 3 interceptions, but I know you watched this game, and I think you were tweeting about it quite a bit, and I think you did mention something like you were just kind of aggravated and you were turning it off. So yes. What did you take away from this game from either Matt Corral, Malik Willis, or both?
Let's start with Matt Corral. He is a gamer. He's a dude. He is tough as nails, man. He has the ankle that's going on. And I actually watched him run the ball, improvise, run in the open field, go down, get up, kind of holding that ankle into the air, not wanting to put pressure on the planet on the ground as he walked, and just hobbled. But he went back to the huddle. He's a tough guy, but I think he was like 20 of 24 for like 324, something like that. He was surgical. He threw a couple passes, he threw one downfield. It went into double coverage. The receiver made a great play. That was a terrible decision to throw, but also being on a gimpy ankle, he wasn't able to generate the type of whip and distance on his throw that he normally is able to make. Mm-hmm. That he bounced, he came right back with I think it was a go route or fade down the sideline, and it was just beautifully thrown right into the hands of his receivers. So he was accurate for the most part, made good decisions. Great ball placement, and like I said, just show his toughness. I want to see him. Personally, I think they could have sat him and still won that game. I'm gonna be honest with you. Liberty, just from a talent standpoint, just didn't match up well. And we saw that against. Remember that when they were undefeated, and they lost to Syracuse, and they kept it close. But Sean Tucker was destroying them. Now, granted, Sean Tucker has been destroying a lot of defenses this year. But just their inability to win in the trenches on the offensive side and the defensive side. They're manhandled in the trenches typically. So, Malik Willis showed off his ability to escape, evade, improvise. He made a few throws early, but I go to the fact, like I said, talent-wise, they don't match up. I would love to see Malik Willis on Ole Miss with those receivers getting separation, because when the offensive line didn't protect well, he didn't have time to wait and to look for someone, right?
Right.
Then when it did get to the place where, okay, the offensive line did give him protection, no one could get open. I'm not sure anyone on that offense is going to be drafted besides Malik Willis, to be completely honest with you.
Right, you're 100% correct. No, there is nobody there.
I don't see it. Like, I think his name is DeMario Douglas, kind of like a shifty slot receiver, has some returner ability as well in his repertoire, but he would probably be an undrafted free agent somewhere along those lines. Like I said, I just don't see anyone being, especially on the offensive line or the defensive line, I don't see anyone being drafted from this team. So sitting here and just watching how that game went, it was just an eyesore, man. And they did make a comeback in the third, but it was just too little too late. And they put too much on. Like, watching Malik Willis go into that game, what I said to myself was, he's going to have to be Superman. Mm-hmm. He's going to have to be Superman. But the problem with him trying to be Superman is the talent on his team, the offensive scheme that Hugh Freeze runs. Those things combined is his kryptonite. Yep. Because as he's still raw, still a developing player, you run the same screen pump and go concept 4 times, and eventually it was picked off.
Yeah.
It was picked off, and he threw 3 picks. He threw that one, when they went back to it, and he threw one. This first interception was not his fault. Receiver, he throws it low and technically away. Receiver, clearly all he has to do go down and make the catch. He gets his hands on the ball. DB rips it from him in an incredible effort. I'm like, okay. If I'm the coach, I'm like, what are we doing? Like, the ball is in your hands. That shouldn't have been an interception, but it was. His second interception was a pump and go that they kept going back to. The third was, it's like a minute left in the game. They're down 2 scores. He was just throwing just a hero ball, trying to make something. Ole Miss knew that this team was overmatched. So what did they do? They gave they sent a lot of pressure. 0 blitzes, extra defenders, harassing him, messing with his eyes and his mind, which is already something that you have to worry about with him being so raw. But then you want your offensive line to help you and pick it up, right? Yeah, not a chance. So it was tough all together, all around. It was tough for and shout out to my guy Jonathan Hagler, worked with me over at Crocker Report when we were there, and he tweeted out, he was like, people wanted this to be Malik versus Corral, but it was really always going to be Malik versus the SEC defense on a bad Liberty team.
Yeah, no, and that's true. And the defense just from like what I've kind of gathered, gave up way too many big plays. I mean, when you look at time of possession, Liberty had the ball for almost 40 minutes of the game. They outrushed them. And the first play of the game was a 75-yard touchdown run by Jahan Dotson. I mean, he went untouched. It was like
they scored in 34 seconds.
Yeah, you can't have that happen. And Liberty's defense is at fault. Not as much as anybody wants to point the finger at Malik Willis or anything like that. So I'm very curious as to how people are going to take this with Malik Willis. I'm not going to write him off as a prospect, but there's people out there that are going to. They're going to spin Absolutely. It as he is terrible, he's bad, etc. And I've said Matt Corral's my QB1 for a while. I didn't think that was really going to change with this game. I still like Malik Willis, so I'm not going to sit here and say that he can't be good, because I think he can be good. I think if you get him in the right spot, he will be a good team. That's like, there's people out there that are like, yeah, I would love to see him in Detroit. I would like to see him in Detroit as well, but that's Liberty 2.0 in my opinion. I mean, that is, and I think any quarterback right now going to that team is going to suffer. So we'll see what happens, right? But I still think those are the 2 quarterbacks that we'll talk about the most as far as, maybe top 10, top 15 picks when we look at quarterbacks going to a first-round team. And then obviously you can sprinkle in Sam Howell, Desmond Ritter in there as well. We'll see obviously what the NFL does. We view it one way. They view it a different way. That always happens when it comes to the quarterbacks within the group. But yeah, I mean, week 10, outside of that, there wasn't much else that happened, right? Like there just really wasn't. Ohio State had, somewhat of a scare with Nebraska. Georgia rolled Missouri. Kenny Pickett did their thing against Duke. And I guess maybe I should throw a little respect to Kenny Pickett as well as one of those potential quarterbacks. Illinois pulls off an upset. TCU, after letting go of Gary Patterson, they beat Baylor surprisingly. But again,
Tennessee versus Kentucky, Heaton Hooker, literally just a phenomenal, just masterful game from him, throwing the football, in a shootout, 45-42. He was 15 of 20, Russ, for 316 and 4 touchdowns. Like, he played very well. Will Levis played a good game. Him and Wandale Robinson, 13 receptions, 166. It was a very fun game between those 2 teams.
Yeah, I when I saw that game, it was like I think it was 21-7 or 21-14. I was like, well, I should probably put this on. And I tuned in a little bit, and it was just like neither team really didn't want to play defense. They wanted their quarterbacks to do their thing. So, and kind of the same thing with Arkansas, Mississippi State. Rogers throws for, Will Rogers throws for 417 yards, and Jefferson does his thing. He's efficient with the ball. He's able to run around. But there's 2 receivers in that game. Mississippi State gets upset by Arkansas and 31-28. Mississippi State was ranked Mississippi State was ranked 17th in this one, and they're a 4-loss team, and they did miss a field goal to end the game. But Mekhi Polk played well with 8 receptions. Treylon Burks played well. Treylon Burks, one of those receivers, and I'm going to shift into receivers here because I had a tweet today that kind of got blown out of proportion by a specific random person on Twitter, but Treylon Burks in that wide receiver 1 conversation. Garrett Wilson, I know, is kind of your guy. Chris Olave is kind of my guy. I was watching some of Ohio State today, and man, Garrett Wilson is good. He is just so shifty. He is so good with those inside-outside moves and really giving those head fakes and really throttling down and planting off either an inside leg or an outside leg to get that leverage inside or out and becoming wide open. It's just so fun to watch. But with Treylon Burks, I mean, you're just talking height, weight, speed type of player that is just so fun to watch. But another player, and that's Drake London, who was just, I mean, wow, what a season he had. It's now over, a fractured ankle, I believe it is. And I thought he was playing. I didn't even know he hurt his ankle till yesterday. I had no idea. But he's done for the year. And when you look at just the receiving leaders across college football, he led basically in every single major category that you can think of. He had over 1,000 yards receiving. He had 88 receptions and 7 touchdowns. Was on pace to be the top receiver in the country when it comes statistically on a bad quarterback team. But where are you with those types of guys? Really, those 4 guys. I kind of know where you are with Treylon Burks. Again, I know where you are with kind of Wilson and Olave, and we've kind of talked a little bit about Drake London. But with Drake London, does this injury hurt him enough to really be out of the first-round conversation? Because it seemed like he was solidified in that conversation, and now it seems like maybe we'll be talking about him more so on the second day of the draft.
I think it does drop. I think he falls to that top of the second round. I didn't have him top 20 like a lot of people have been saying. I really like Drake London. I just didn't have him that high. I think they're just better players, not receivers, but I'm not one to ignore defense, like a talented defensive class like we have. I'm not one to ignore the defensive side of the ball just because of a high profile receiver. It's too. We see a lot of bad defenses in the NFL already, and I feel like this is the draft where we kind of fix some of that up. I want better quality for me, but I think it does drop because I think people, especially myself, but I think a lot of people are going to wanted to see him run. Actually, time him. Get those GPS numbers. What is his 40 time? What will he jump in the vertical? What's his what's his timing? What's his short shuttle? Everything. They want to just get that testing, that tangible testing on the books, because if he goes out and runs a 4.5, he's more than likely stamped himself as a first round receiver at 6'4". His physicality, his high pointing ability, literally the best in college football. I don't think there's a receiver. There isn't a receiver. I could say that definitely. There is not a receiver in college football that plays the ball in the air better than Drake London. No one right now. So I just wanted to see him test. So him not being able to do the pre-draft workouts and everything else, it's going to, now don't get me wrong. If he depends on, everyone heals differently.
Right.
If he's some freak of nature in terms of genetically and he heals faster than people expect, he's able to do some stuff. Remember when Tua got hurt and they were like, oh, well, we're not going to see him do anything. And then he put this workout in, and showed, I can still work out. I'm still able to throw. I'm not who I was before the hip injury just yet, but I can still, do a pro day, somewhat of a pro day, right?
Right.
If Drake London's able to do something like that, that'd be amazing. That'd be great. But it's tough, man, because it's like I said, it's all about what you're looking for, what your preferences are, what you want when it pertains to the receiver position. I do like my receivers to be technical. I want guys that can win on their own with route separation and everything. I remember seeing a tweet a couple of weeks ago. Someone said that route running and separation is overrated. And I was like, no, that's not true. That's definitely not true. I was like, you can't win off of jump balls all the time. I think, a guy that may be slipping down some boards, not so much boards, but out of the national spotlight, and he plays for a premier team, is John Metchi. I think Metchi is a really good receiver. All three level threat. He's a leader, tough, gritty, physical receiver, high football IQ as well. I think he's a guy that if he falls out in the first round and he's in the second round, you think about teams that need that second receiver to step in and be that number two, possibly. It really just depends on what you're looking for. You know what I mean? In terms of where is your point receiver? I always say, right, New England, the point receiver was the slot for many years, for pretty much almost all of Tom Brady's career, except when he had actual speed threats. When he had an outside threat, he's like, forget this digging and dunking stuff. Let me throw to Moss and Dante Stallworth. Let these boys average 18 to 25 yards per reception. And why are we going on 14 play drives? Let me go ahead and just go ahead and kill it in 5 and score a touchdown, But yeah, so it's like, a lot of those things come into play, but there's a lot of different guys. You got Jalen Tolbert as well. And he's a talented receiver. Calvin Austin, kind of in the mold of, that Rondale Moore, just elusive, explosive jitterbug, small body guy. Jaquari Roberson over at Wake Forest, which shout out to, one of my guys over there is a recruiter. And I actually hit him up, a little while ago. And I was like, hey man, who I need to look out for the squad? And he was like, Sam Hartman and Jaquari Roberson. And he hasn't lied to me yet because he was dead on. These guys have been cooking. But I want to throw a name out there over at Iowa State, man. Xavier Hutchinson. I am really big on him. I'm a big fan of his game. I think that he puts in a lot of work. It seems like nobody really talks about him enough. But he's a gamer, man. Zachary Franklin over at UTSA. He's another guy that can really put in work at the receiver position, has the size, 6'1", 185, can move all around, good route runner, especially against off coverage and then against air. This is a talented group. It's a talented group of receivers.
No question about it. I'm with you 100%, man. And two other guys, we mentioned David Bell earlier. And again, this is all kind of in the limelight of the injury that happens to a talented player like Drake London. It's going to open the door. I mean, you said it yourself. You think he's going to drop a little bit, and he very well could. I think there's enough on the tape to say, hey, I'm fine with taking this guy in the first round. But I think, again, it's more so for the teams that have the multiple first-round picks that can gamble it, or have a plethora of draft picks, or just in a better position overall. So you're talking about the teams like maybe Las Vegas would do it just simply because they have a relatively good roster overall. I think, at least from a winning perspective, they're winning football games with the players that they have. Buffalo as well. You look at maybe even like a team like New Orleans, or even a team like Pittsburgh, who I think should take a quarterback before anything. But two other guys we mentioned earlier, David Bell, what he was able to do, and he's been able to do that consistently over the course of his career. He was just kind of overshadowed because of Rondale Moore and some of the bad quarterback play. But then you have Jahan Dotson from Penn State, who, man, this guy, he might be a first-round receiver when it's all said and done. I mean, 71 receptions for 932 yards and 9 scores. He's 5'11", 184. He's a senior. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw him at the Senior Bowl, just simply because that's where he can put his route running ability on display. And again, these teams that need those receivers in the back end somewhere, Green Bay, Detroit, again, Vegas, Buffalo, New Orleans, Pittsburgh, New England even, he fits those types of teams where he can really put his ability to separate, his speed, his ability to go up and get it. I mean, at 5'11", you don't expect a player like that to climb the ladder, and he does. And it's so impressive to see what he can do. So Dotson, I'm very much in on, and I think an unfortunate injury to a player will benefit other guys. So we'll see how it plays out. But it's crazy. Week 10 is in the books. And I mean, I think we've been going for damn near an hour already. But I think we could do this all day, just sitting here talking prospects, because there's so many players on the list. I've been watching a ton of offensive linemen. I haven't even got a chance to really talk about. Nick Broker out of Ole Miss, the kid out of North Carolina, Joshua Azuto. It's just so many guys, but man, what a show. You got anything else to add for us? Because I'm all set. Like I said, I could be here all day.
No, I think that's it, man. I guess I'm gonna watch some film after the Cardinals San Francisco game, which is on right now, which just started not too long ago. So I'm gonna watch that game, probably take some notes, and then watch some film, man. You know what I mean? Just kind of get into the film room, start trying to get some reports laid out and everything. So yeah.
I'm with you. Real quick, there is a matchup brewing for Thursday night. Sam Howell on the road at Pitt against Kenny Pickett. So circle that Thursday, November 11th. Should be a fun one. Super excited.
Kenny Pitt, a.k.a. Diet Joe Burrow.
Ooh, I like Kenny Two Gloves, but Diet Joe Burrow, that works too. Man, that is good. Diet Joe Burrow. Well, DP, I appreciate you on a Sunday afternoon. Enjoy the Cardinals game without Kyler Murray and D-Hop. We'll see how that goes. But you guys, of course, can find us on Twitter at Russ NFL Draft, at DP_NFL. Of course, you can rate, review, and subscribe to the show. Search the Cover One Draft Podcast. You can find it on YouTube on the Cover One YouTube page. You can also find it on Spotify, Spreaker, Apple Podcasts, really wherever you get your podcasts. Add us into the mix. Become a premium subscriber as well over at cover1.net. I mean, guys, it's like the best $10 you'll ever spend in your life. We've got all kinds of packages. You get to talk prospects with us whenever you want. You can hit us up on Slack. We'll break down film for you, show you what we're looking at. You'll get some film sessions with us as we start doing those. I think I know who we're going with first. But yeah, no, tons of great stuff over at cover1.net. So check it out. And of course, like I said, find us on Twitter. And until then, have a great rest of your week, DP. I'm sure I'll be talking to you. So until next time, this is Cover One, the NFL Draft Podcast.